Well, it's been in the DNA of the company since the beginning. In fact, all the companies I've started have had similar DNA. We've started with people that understand how to innovate, but we've been perpetually perplexed, if you want a phrase that's quite hard to say, that when it came to startups, the idea of innovating was natural. But as soon as that startup was bought into a large company, that innovation seemed to stop. Or what we saw also was that large companies that felt they needed to innovate really didn't know where to start. So we had always embraced innovation and understood how these things come about, but we'd struggled to see why the larger organisations couldn't take advantage. Innovation now, I think, because of some of the research I've become aware of, certainly, is around the Kondratiev cycles. Okay, these are an idealistic economist position that as one area of innovation and change and disruption comes to an end of its cycle, other areas of industry start to pick up on these things. And I think it's fair to say we are getting to a point now where we're seeing so much commoditization of the IT industry that in order to compete, people are either starting to say the competition has to happen, the innovation has to happen elsewhere, or it has to happen in more interesting ways in the way we build software, deliver solutions as enterprises. So it's an interesting point. It's at that point where you can see it in cloud. Cloud is a classic, unsexy, in my opinion, example of commoditization of IT. I don't mean unsexy in the sense that people aren't getting very excited about it. It's getting excited about it, but it's getting excited because it's enabling something else. The baggage, if you like, of how much kit have I got, where is it in the world, how many cables do I have connecting it. This is being commoditized now to the point where large organizations are realizing if we use cloud to enable some of these things, then those problems are someone else's problems. Now the issue is, what's my problem now? And that's where innovation, where do I spend my money as a big enterprise? Where do I spend it on gaining a competitive advantage? And innovation gets a lot of baggage, shall we say, and there's a lot of people who use the term far too much. But I'm talking about it in reference to enabling competitive advantage as an organisation. You could do things faster, but if you do the wrong things faster, you're still not going to win. It's about being smarter and faster and removing a lot of that inertia in your organisation. Not necessarily removing people at all, but removing the inertia around everything we had to concentrate on before, which is no longer to our advantage. Very simple ones, actually, to be fair. The models are engagement models, in fact. We've got two styles I'll talk about briefly. One is what we call the glass elevator. It's essentially the idea that an organisation, enterprise, has something they'd like to pursue, has come to the realisation, or is coming to the realisation that they may not have the right people to hit this particular ball out of the park, and they don't want those variables in their own organisation that they know can be inhibiting to be the reasons that they don't do this thing. So they'll engage myself and my colleagues to take that problem, demonstrate it technically using lean startup style techniques, whether we may use very small amounts of technology at first and then only using technology when we need to prove the scale of a new business competitive idea, building it, showing it, and then the glass elevator can work two ways. We can launch out into a new enterprise that's potentially associated with the parent enterprise, and that is often a very popular choice. To say, well, why go through the pain of bringing it back in? We don't need to. Why don't we keep the culture that we've developed around this new thing that we've built, a new competitive advantage, and keep that there and take the rewards for it? The other opportunity, which I think is still in the majority, is to bring it back in-house. So the model is very simple. Bring it out, get it rolling with potentially your people, get it built with your people to a certain degree, but then bring that new culture of innovation around this product back in-house at the end. And that's kind of that's a very high level view of the challenges of doing this. That the challenges of making that happen when all enterprises' cultures are very different. The urges and the internal politics are, as you can imagine, interesting. But as long as you can get people understanding that the reason we're doing this is innovation is our competitive advantage. If we want to succeed and grow, innovation and being faster, being quicker, thinking differently about the technologies involved might require us to do something different than just roll out the same technologies again. This is something that I've discussed a number of times with my clients, is how do we innovate on the existing technology base that we're used to? And the answer is quite simply, you can, but it's going to be as fast an innovation, as fast as enabling a new technology or new technology you're going to build on top of these things as you're used to in the past, and your competitors are using the same. So you're not gaining much of an advantage here. You end up trying to hide what you're doing to the absolute last minute, spending a lot of money building something to then launch it on the marketplace, take all the risk, and no one wants it. Okay, so better idea, why don't you make part of building this thing its edge, which means taking on newer technologies, which means potentially engaging people like myself and my colleagues outside of your organisation to help build a new piece of technology using different technologies and enabling something potentially quicker that not only is as a business opportunity something a bit different from what you've done before, but also is built entirely differently from what you've been doing before and is in fact taking advantage of those things. So it's almost saying that the curve of IT, as it moves much more to commoditization, is now pushing the renaissance in IT into other areas where we can use these technologies to our advantage. We're seeing it in databases. Everyone was rolling out relational databases for years. Now we're seeing a renaissance in data access technologies because we now have data problems, such as whether they're small, big, or whatever. We have data problems that we can solve with different data storage techniques. Well, that renaissance can be taken advantage of by your organisation in order to innovate, but only if you are willing to realise that you need different skills in order to do that. And that's where myself and my colleagues think. One of the nightmare scenarios for our clients is often we've spun out this idea, it seems to be working, and then we bring it in-house and it dies. It just cans out because it's basically the cultures just don't mix. We can't bring it back. So what we're very careful to do is, if the goal is to bring this particular technology back, this particular new thing that we've built back, we work very hard to not do it in a complete isolated scenario. There's a lot of collaboration with the organisation. There's a lot of abilities to communicate back to the organisation what's working. It's not the case that all things transfer in both ways, but what I have seen a number of times now, an emergent property, is that the enterprise itself kind of has its eyes, the culture has its eyes gradually opened to these other technologies that we're using and starts to think, well, we've got these other areas that we work that maybe aren't the absolute cutting edge of innovation and competitive advantage for us, but if we use these things that are no longer seen as huge risks, but potentially advantageous, we can bring the lessons in that we're seeing in this glass elevator scenario back into our organisation on a very frequent basis, even before we've brought the actual project potentially. The trust has to come from the fact that we are not looking to compete in any way with the enterprises we work with. We're a small organisation for a start, and we tend to not get very big either. The level of trust gets built up because we invest massively in the technologies that we use. They are, I think, arguably niche technologies, but they are niche in that there's not many people using them to their best advantage because they are newer, they are emerging, is the phrase we use. Because we know how to use these technologies, because we've written the books on these technologies, because we may have even been contributors to the projects on these technologies, we are seen as the trusted advisors. We're not trying to compete where the new product may be going. What we're trying to do is help the enterprise get themselves there. That's our complete bag. So we are seen trusted, if you like, on two angles. We're not in your market, but we are also trying to very honestly use the right technologies for the right reasons. The other thing is we don't have our own technologies. It sounds a little bit crazy, but we don't look to sell in, here's our new technology platform for something. What we have is experience with what's there. And we are not in the phrase we use is opinionated, expert, but unbiased. What I'd like to do is tap into, hopefully what I see is, certainly from my clients, is a ongoing debate about how we compete. What is competition for big enterprises when IT is a commodity? What can we do? So one strong thread of that is emerging technologies. How do large organisations even engage with those things? Because I think that people generally recognise they could be a competitive advantage, but they just don't know how to make that initial first step. So I can see a lot of discussion around that. I'd also like to discuss where people are seeing cultural shifts around innovation, because I know a lot of large organisations are being woken up to the fact that they need to innovate. Interesting enough, there's another thread to that. How do you develop a culture of innovation itself in an organisation? How do you get people interested in different emerging technologies, how we could do things differently, whether it be process or whatever? How do you build that in a company where it could be the reason the company survives or doesn't? So all of those threads I want to bring to the table for this event and actually make a nice open discussion where people are honestly saying, this is something we value, something we can see value in. These are the challenges I see where I am. I would like to see it as something that we do as a regular thing, in fact. That's the eventual plan if my aspirations ever come about, is that it's not just about a one-off, let's talk innovation, get everyone excited and see you later, folks. It would be more of a, let's do this, and then shall we meet up again to discuss some of these themes to see where else they're going. You know, you're going to go on a journey. Everyone's been talking about agile journeys in the last 12 years, 13 years. Innovation journeys, turning organisations into places where innovation can happen again, I think is going to be the next 5 to 10 years. So I would like to build a bit of an ecosystem and a community maybe around what does innovation look like and how do we help ourselves to make it happen. But that's my aspiration.